So last week, we saw a lot of drama in both chambers of the Illinois legislature as they returned to in-person session, and a lot of it happening in the House with several lawmakers not wearing face coverings per the House rule, and they were actually ejected after 3 days of the issue of masks becoming an issue. But you also had something else that was happening kind of beneath the surface there, and that was the legislative inspector general being selected. But it seemed to be a very partisan process. What do we expect happening this week at the State House with the lawmakers coming back into session with a whole bunch of committees and dealing with various appropriation bills and so on? Let's talk now with State Senator Steve McClure, Republican from Springfield, here on the WMAY Morning News Feed. I'm Greg Bishop, now at 7:41. Senator, thanks for taking time with us this morning. What do you expect happening this week after all of the action last week?
Well, I think we're going to see a lot of bills moving out of the Senate. On Friday, it's the deadline for third reading for bills that are in the Senate. And then after Friday, theoretically, we'll then start dealing with House bills. So I expect to see a lot of bills move this week. Which bills, I'm not sure yet, but we've got quite a few that are on our radar.
What indication have you been given are going to be some of the priorities that the Democratic supermajority plans on addressing outside of the governor's proposed budget?
Well, there's always this. Well, let me put it to you this way. I expect there to be some sort of a criminal law bill because it's just too big of an issue for there not to be. And in the last few weeks, that's what many Democrats have talked about. Some sort of a trailer bill to the massive criminal law bill that was such a huge deal last January. So to me, that's going to have to happen. Now, is it going to happen by Friday? I don't think so, but it's going to happen at some point this session, and we'll just have to see when that happens, what the bill entails.
Well, I tell you, having watched the State House for 7-8 years now, real close, even though there's deadlines, Senator, you know this as well. Things could come up in a shell bill form in the final few hours of session. So we'll watch closely as to what happens there. But obviously with the deadline Friday, we could see a whole bunch of bills flying out of the Senate. What are some of the Republican superminority priorities that you feel are not going to be addressed at all?
Well, I would say the crime issue. For me, I'm waiting this week because I've got a DCFS bill that would allow for DCFS investigators, if they choose to carry mace after they have received training from the Illinois State Police. So this is a critical week for me for that bill because we've now had another brutal murder of a DCFS investigator, and not much has really changed at DCFS to protect these investigators. So for me, it's a big week for that because my constituent, Deidre Silas, was the most recent murder. And I want to try to do what I can to make sure that does not happen again. And if my bill gets passed, that would not, solve all the problems, but it would be a step in the right direction. So that's a big deal for me this week. And, all of our members really have priorities and, they want to get certain bills passed to help their districts. And so, we're kind of at the mercy of the Democrats to let these bills through. And we never really quite know until sometimes the very last moment.
State Senator Steve McClure with us on the WMAY Morning News Feed at 7:44. I'm Greg Bishop. And last week, Senator, we saw, of course, what happened in the House with 3 days worth of debate about mask wearing. We didn't see that play out at all in the Senate. How come?
Well, because we are focused on trying to get things done and trying to work with the other side. To be honest with you, Greg, there's a pretty nasty environment right now in the Senate with President Harmon and members of the Republican Party in the Senate. That sort of was, I guess, very obvious in the Inspector General debate. I think President Harmon really went off the rails, and it's just a different environment. The Speaker right now in the House is letting a lot more bills through that are Republican bills. In the Senate, we're hardly getting any bills through. And so all of us are just trying to, again, work to get our bills passed. And, it's just a different environment. So we didn't really bring that up because we have our own issues and we really want to get some bills passed. Meanwhile, the House Republicans are getting a lot more things passed than we are, and so that's kind of the difference right now. But I did think it was funny during the debate, Greg, that President Harmon was insistent upon being so partisan and barreling his nominee through. It had to be this Democrat selection. And by the way, this judge that was voted on by both houses may be a wonderful judge, and I've heard lots of wonderful things about him. But the fact that the party, who is the party that has the indictments and the convictions right now in the General Assembly, 3 Democratic members of the legislature since my time in office have been convicted of federal crimes, and they are the party that wants to be the one to select the inspector general with no Republicans supporting them. That's just the typical Illinois way, I guess. But it was very disappointing that that's the road that President Harmon chose to go down.
Now, you're not on the Legislative Ethics Commission, but we did see a lot of kind of the behind closed doors conversations spill out during this debate about selecting a new legislative inspector general. Does that portend what the rest of the session is going to be like? I mean, you guys are only in until April 8th. So is it going to be just this partisan divide that we've seen often year after year after year?
I sure hope not. And I got to say, the previous president, President Kellerton, was good to work with. He was easy to work with. President Harmon is very, very partisan, and they have been, it's been very rough trying to get things done for everyone in my district. Quite frankly, Democrats and Republicans, we want to do bipartisan things, and President Harmon makes it extremely difficult. But it's not too late, and we could see maybe some of our shell bills, for example, get released out of assignments this week. That would be wonderful. And, I'm certainly willing to work with President Harmon and willing to work with my friends on the other side of the aisle. So it's yet to be seen, since we haven't really finished our work yet. But I'm very nervous about that, because all of us want to do what's right for the state and what's right for our constituents. We can't do that in such a partisan environment where there's Democrats stealing Republican bills and this just overall nastiness. It doesn't work for the people of the state of Illinois. And I think most folks are tired of that sort of politics.
Well, and how many constituents are in Republican districts that aren't getting a chance to have their concerns heard at the state house when the supermajority tends to block out any initiatives that may move forward?
Quite a few, and the DCFS workers in my district, Greg, I don't care if they're Democrats or Republicans. I'm just trying to address their concerns. And we just can't do that. And that's a life or death bill, in my opinion. My bill, I truly believe that the bill to allow DCFS case or investigators to carry mace will save someone's life. And the fact that it's still stuck in assignments, even though there are over 30 Democrat and Republican co-sponsors of the bill, is very disappointing. Now, there's time to change that, and so I'm optimistic that we can change that. But it's just really frustrating, because these are not. It's not like, Greg, this is some sort of a bill that's a partisan bill. It's not. It's for it to not be heard in committee is very, very disappointing. But that could change this week.
State Senator Steve McClure with us on the WMAY Morning News feed. Governor J.B. Pritzker has an event at 1:30 up in Chicago. We have yet to actually hear from the governor directly in response to the 4th District Court of Appeals saying that his appeal on the mask and vaccine mandate case is moot because of the actions of Jay Carr last week. Your thoughts on this? He's going to apparently be asking the Illinois Supreme Court to take this case up. Should that advance?
I don't think it should advance. I think it is moot. And, parents have come to me since the beginning of this pandemic. And I've always stressed that it should be a local choice. And, the problem with the way that the government has been run with these mandates is that, if the governor says, all school children have to wear these masks, parents can't really do anything about it. They can't go see the governor. They can't go make any real difference. But if it's a local decision with each school board in each school, then there's a remedy for them. They can go to the principal. They can go to school board members or and vote people out that they don't believe are, doing what they should be doing as members of the school board. So it should be a local decision. It's moot at this point. And all of a sudden, he's going to allow for adults to not wear masks February 28th, but yet kids, which are the least affected by COVID, he wants them to continue wearing masks at school. It defies logic, and anybody who doesn't think this is all political is just not paying attention.
Well, is it about politics, or is it about, the governor's the one that made the decision? The governor wants to make the decision to lift it.
Well, I think it's about politics because I think the governor believes that this is a loss for him politically if these mask mandates are overturned, and that's what it comes down to. Politicians don't like to lose things, and it makes them look like they're ineffective. Because Governor Pritzker's been saying that for the safety of these kids, we're going to keep the masks in place, and yet members of his own party have voted for that not to be the case anymore.
State Senator, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Your phone dropped out a little bit. Go ahead and finish your thought.
Oh, sorry. So the governor loses because he's making the case that this is what's important, this is what we have to do, and yet members of his own party are disagreeing with him. And so when you have a loss like that, when you have been the person from the beginning of this pandemic stressing that you're making all the right decisions, you're doing what is right despite what the polls say, and now all of a sudden it seems like you're not doing what's right, and members of your own party agree with the fact that you're not doing things right. So it's a big loss for him politically, and I think that's a big part of this as well.
State Senator Steve McClure, greatly appreciate you taking the time with us, and we'll be watching closely what happens throughout the rest of the week. Be safe out there.
Thank you very much, Greg.
It is the WMAY Morning News Feed.